Hello everyone, we have to discuss about that. Myself Aarti Jatav, introducing about self. So let's start for UPSC GS आंसर राइटिंग प्रिपरेशंस. सो हमारी क्वेश्चन देख लेते हैं. क्वेश्चन नंबर 14. डोंट वेस्ट टाइम and continue the sessions. Question number 14. The groundwater potentials of the Gangetic Valley is on either superior senior serious and the declines how may and it is the affected the food and the security of India. Core demands of the question highlights and that the groundwater potentials of the Gangetic Valley is on either serious and declines. Discuss how this the declines and may affect the food and the security of India and suggested a way he'd answer. The Gangetic Valley play a the pivotal and role in the India's and total the food and productions. However, in this battle rise and faces other severe and declines in groundwaters and levels due to the over extractions and unsustainable agriculture practices and geopardying. Particing is the ability to the sustain crops and yield and the consistency the food security of the millions across the nations. Decline in groundwater potential of the Gangetic Valley. Over extractions and the excessive groundwater extractions for the irrigations has led to the repeat depletions of the aquifers and reducing the overalls and availability of the groundwaters. For the instance, the Punjab and region part of the larger Gangetic basins has the witnessed a significant drop in groundwaters level with the reports and indicating a decline of over 1 meters and per years in some areas. Population, agricultural and runoff and industrial waste and have the contaminated and groundwater sources making them the unsuitable and for the irrigation and affecting crops yield. For instance, the Ganga rivers and water the qualities in states like the Uttar Pradesh has the deteriorated and due to the industrial discharged and impacting both the groundwaters and surface water resources. Urbanization increasing the urban development in the region has the escalated and groundwater uses further the strainings the already developing resources. For example, cities like the Kanpur and the Varanasi has been rapid and urbanization leading to over the extractions and of groundwaters to meet the need of growing and populations. Climate change and altered and rainfall patterns due to the climate changes and have the reduced the naturals recharge of the aquifers and exacerbating groundwater depletions. For example, the erratic monsoon patterns in Bihar have the resulted in the inconsistent and groundwater and replenishment impacting farming practices. Lack of recharge structures indicates and implementation of rainwater harvesting and others the groundwater recharge and techniques has the hampered and effort to the restores and groundwater levels and inefficient irrigation practices and outdated and inefficient and irrigation method like the flood irrigation and best substantials and accounts of water and compounding the declines in groundwater level. For instance, and West Bengal and where the traditional irrigation method are the prevalent water weightage and has the significant contributed the declining groundwater tables. Effort on the food security in India reduce the crop yield, groundwater depletions and in the Gangetic Valley directly limit irrigation leading to the significant crops yield reductions. For example, In Haryana and Uttar Pradesh, farmers have reported up to 30% lower yield for the staples like the paddy and wheat, and due to the insufficient water availability and posting other serious threat to food security in the regions. Increased dependence on rainfall, agricultural reduced groundwater forces farmers in the Gangetic Valley to increasing really on the rain-fed and agricultural high tending risk, and during the inconsistent monsoon seasons crop the diversification challenges the declines in groundwater restrict crop the desertifications in the Gangetic Valley bears the farmers heavily really on water intensive rice. For example, in Punjab, the depictions of groundwater and discourages farmers from the adapting to adopting slaves water demanding crops like the pulses and maize, threatening both the food and diversities and long terms and agricultural sustainabilities increase the dependence on the rain fed agricultural reduced the groundwaters and forces farmers in the Gangetic Valley and to really for on the rain fed and agriculture increasing the vulnerabilities to erratic monsoon threat to livestock and farming declines the groundwater's availability affects and livestock and health in the Gangetic Valley and by the limiting feed quality and inequalities and reducing the productivities in dairy and meats production and exacerbating the food security issues. Long-term sustainability issues continues and groundwater depictions and threat the agricultural sustainability and futures food security in the Gangetic Valley and with many the district and facing the potential water scarcity if the current trends persist. Be it promotion of water efficient crops and encourages farmers to shift towards less water intensive crops like the millet, pulses and outseed and which the requires less water for groups. For examples, the Odisha government has the promoted and millet the cultivations under the millet missions to reduce dependence on water intensive rice efficient irrigation techniques the adoptions of water saving techniques like the drips irrigations and the sprinkles and can help reduce the water wastage and improve groundwater management. And for example, the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai and Yojana and PMKSY has the introduced drip irrigation schemes in Gujarat increasing and water use the efficiency in farming, the rainwater harvesting and recharge, strengthening rainwater harvesting systems and promoting the groundwater recharge and through the check dams and point can help and replenishing and groundwaters and resource. For example, in Rajasthan, in the Mukhya Mantri Jal and the Swachh Lambhan and Abhiyan has the helped and built check dams to the recharge groundwater, improving water availability for agriculture. Sustainable agricultural and practices integrating the sustainables and practices like crops rotation and conservation tillage and the organics and farmings can the reduce the water and dependency and enhances soil's moistures retentions. For example, in Andhra Pradesh, farmers and practice science, zero budget naturals and the farmings and ZBNF have reduced the water usage through the male and chinnings and the naturals fertilizers policy and interventions governments and can the introduced strictures and regulations and on the groundwater extractions and providing the sustainabilities or incentives for the adopting water efficiency technologies. For example, the Punjab has the introduced the restrictions on yearly the paddy and transplantations to prevent the groundwater depletions and accompanied accompanied by the incentives and for the farmers adopting the sustainable practices to groundwater to save grounds and India's food the securities and immediates and collaborations effort are the required includes sustainable groundwater management and water efficiency farming practices and policy interventions are the proactive approach is essential to preserve the agriculture backbone of the Gangetic Valley and the ensures long-term food sustainability for the nations. Question number 15. What are the auroras and astratias and aurora? And Borealis and how are those and triggered and core demands of the question. Explain aurora Australian south lights and the auroras and boreals and northern lights. Discuss how the auroras are the tried. Auroras Australias and auroras and boreals commonly referred to as the southern and the northern light are the remarkable atmospheric phenomena that the manifest as the vibrant and lights displayed in the polars and regions and thus the auroras are the generated and through the interactions of the charged particles from the solar winds and early with the early with the early and magnetic field and atmospheric resulting in other dazzling array of the colors and that the illuminated the night sky. Aurora and Borealis northern lights. Locations. The auroras borealis occurs the predominantly in the areas close to the magnetics and non-poles, including the regions like the Alaskas and Canadas, Scandinavias and parts of the Russia. Appearance. This the phenomenon presented as the colorful and display of the lights and primarily in the shade of greens, but can also the features pinks and red, yellow and the purples. House depending on the types of gas involved and the attitude at which the interactions occurs frequently and visibility is the northern light. The northern light are the frequently observed and once and can the sometimes be the frequently be seen at the lower altitude during the intense solar and activities and making them the escalabilities to other borders. Audience cultural significance. Many the culturals and have the myth and legend associated with the northern lights. Northern lights often wavering them as omens or the messages from the divine. And recent observation there are the several recent and notables occurrences of the auroras and borealis and such other significant displays in the fall of 2023 and the spurred by the highlighted solar activities. Location. The aurora and the Australias occurs in the southern hemispheres and the primarily and around Antarctica and can the also be seen in the parts of the southern Australias and in New Zealand and Chile's appearances like its the northern and the counterparts and this auroras and displays the vibrant color and with the green and the pinks and bringing the most and common influences by the atmospheric conditions and less the frequent and the visibilities due to the favors and populated areas in the southern regions. The southern and lights are less and frequently observed and by the generated general public and compares to the northern lights and a scientific researches the area Australia offers the unique opportunities for scientific research and particularly in the Antarctica where researchers studies space the weather's efforts on the atmosphere. Recent event notable occurrence includes the invisibility during the solar storms and such as the display and witnessed in early 2024 in southern New Zealand, and which drew the significant attention. Triggering of the auroras. Solar wind auroras and are the initials why the solar wind, and which the consist of large and particles and emitted by the sun, and when thus the particles and reach the earth, and they the interact and with the planets and magnetic field and magnetospheres and interactions the earth and magnetospheres and channels, and thus the solar particles and towards the solar polars regions, and where the magnetic field is strongest, and the provided other pathway for thus the particles and to the enter the atmospheres. Excitations of atmospheric gases upon colliding and with wind and the oxygen and nitrogen atoms in the upper atmosphere, thus the solar particles transfers energy, exciting thus the gases and causing them to the emits and light, thus the creating the auroras and altitude and variations and the colors observed in the auroras and depend on the ice of gas and the altitude of the collisions. For the instant, and oxygen at higher altitude can limit red lights, and while at the lower and altitude it is the produced green lights. Impact of the solar activities, the frequency and intensity of the auroras are the significantly influences by the solar activities such as the solar and the flare rays and the coronals and mass and the ejections, which can enhance the visibilities of the auroras even in lower the latitudes. Gaining insights and into the process and behind the auroras australis and the auroras and the boreals, and depends over the admirations for thus and the remarkables and natural displays, and while also the shadings and light on the relationship between the solar activities and earth the magnetic field. Ongoing the studies and careful the observations of solar wind and the geomagnetic and disruptions are the crucial for the advancing our the understandings of their the impact on atmospheric science. Question number 16, what is other twisters? What is other twisters and why are the what is other twister and why are the majority of the twister observed in the areas and around the Gulf of the Mexico? Co-demand of the question, define the twisters and its the characteristic, highlights the reason for the high and the twisters frequency around the Gulf of the Mexico. The twisters and commonly known as other tornado is other rapidly rotating and clouds of air that the existence from other thunderstorms and to the ground, and the characterized by its the destructive potentials and the associated severe weather the condition. For the instant, the recent tornadoes outbreaks in Texas in 2023 caused the intensive damage in the affected region. Characteristic of twisters. Funnel shape twisters typically form either visible funnels and clouds that the extended from either thunderstorms base to the ground. For example, the my field on tornado in the Kentucky 2021, which is the produced other prominent tunnels that the caused extensive damage across multiple countries and repeat the rotation. And twisters are the characteristic and why the extremely and fast and rotation with the wind speed and that can the ranges from 14 miles and per the hours in week the twisters to the over 300 miles and per the hours in the most and severe cases. For intense, the EPFS rated more tornado in the Oklahomas in the 2013s and demonstrated and such the instant rotation resulting in the catastrophic destructions. Varied and intensity. The intensity of either twisters is the classified using the enhancing and the Fujita and EF scales, which ranges from the EF0 and weak to EF5 and the extremely strong, and for the instant the EF0 weak and to EF5 extremely strong. For extent, the EF Jobson tornado is the Missouri's in 2021 caused the extensive damage and loss of life, emphasizes the destructive powers of mind, mid-range intensely, and twisters. Short duration. Most of the twisters are the short leaps and lasting only a few minutes to an hours. Path of the destruction. Twisters can have other path of the destructions made the varies in the breadth and length. For example, the twisters that the struck Rolling Forks, the Mississippi, and 2023 and curved other path of the devastations, showcasing how and localized and aid the impactful them thus sport storms and can be on the communities and regions for the high twisters and frequently around of Gulf of Mexico warms the most air. The Gulf of Mexico supplied and warms the most air that the interact with polar northerns air, the cheatings air, the creatings and the unstables and conditions and ideals for the thunderstorms and the twisters and formations, seasonals and storms and patterns. The Gulf Coast and sees the district seasonals and storm the pattern in springs and early the summer marked by the class and of the warm and cold air masses, which lead to the increased the twisters activities. Geographic features. The flat terrain and the proximity to water bodies and along the Gulf Coast and allow easy and movement of mass and masses and facilitating the development of the showers thunderstorms that can the produced and twisters wind shear. The reason often experiences the significant wind the years and which is the crucial and for the rotations and necessary for the twister formation. Thunderstorm frequently the Gulf Coast experiences more the frequent and severe thunderstorms due to the moistures and from the Gulf and the favorable atmospheric condition increasingly the livelihood of twister, reducing the devastating impact of the twister and required an effective early the warming systems and public awareness and coordinated and the disaster response plans advanced and the meteorological tools and the timely alert save lives and while the education and the preparedness and empowers community other robust disaster management and frameworks the ensures and both the immediate and safety and the brief recovery following and such event. Question number 17. What is regional disparities and how does it is the differs from the destinies and how the serious is the issue of the regional and the disparities in India? Define the what is the regional and disparities. Explain how the regional disparities differs from the diversities examines the seriousness of the issues of the regionals and disparities in India, suggest a way ahead and to address the regional disparities in India. The regional disparities refers to the inequalities and distributions of the resources, development and the opportunities across the different regions and within other country, leading to imbalance in the economic growth and living the standard. Unlike the diversity and which the celebrates and difference in the culture and the geographies and the disparities and highlights and inequalities in India and regionals and the disparities in other significant issues and with the stark and contrast and between the prosperous areas and the underdeveloped region and the rational disparities. It is refers to the inequals and the distributions of resources, infrastructures and development across different regions. These disparities affect the economic growth and social development and qualities of life and creating a the gap between the developed and underdeveloped and regime. For example, despite government initiatives, states like Maharashtra and Gujarat have the surged ahead in terms of the industrializations while the regimes unlike the northeastern Indias and continues to lag, resulting in the widening economic imbalance, economics and inequalities regionals disparities and manifested as economics inequalities and where the certain regimes are more and prosperous than others. For example, Maharashtra per capita income is significantly higher than the Odisha's reflected the industry growth imbalance, infrastructures gap disparities is the visuals. In the infrastructures development between the regimes affected the connectivity and across to basic amenities. For example, Western India, especially the Gujarat and Maharashtra, and boast the superior infrastructures compared to the underdevelopment regimes or regions of Eastern India. Resources distributions and regime with the naturals and the resources may the skills and remains the underdevelopment. If the proper investment and the industrialization do not the occur. For example, Jharkhand and rich in the coal and reserves lags behind the industrialized and Gujarat in the economic growth. Educationals and opportunities access to the quality educations and varies and the greatly between the regimes and contributing to the uneven and human capital's development. For example, Delhi and the Bangalore offer better educational opportunities compared to the rural areas in Jharkhand, Odisha. Urban rurals divided the disparity between urban and the rural areas within the same state highlights and resigns the imbalance. For example, urban Maharashtra like the Mumbai is far and more the developed and compared to rurals and the Vidarbhas which faces agrarian distress. Different between the regimes and disparities and diversity. Economic wealth, the culturals and focus, the regimes and disparities deals with the economics development while the diversity focus on the cultures different like the language and tradition. For example, the Kerala's high literary contract and with the Uttar Pradesh and lower the developed and showing the regime and disparities in the both states exhibited and cultural diversities throughout the district and cultures Malayalam and the speaking Kerala's and the Hindi speaking Uttar Pradesh and the miserables whereas the abstract disparities can be the quantified through the miserables and indicators like the GDP and literary and health, whereas the diversity is more and the abstract encompassing the cultural and richness and and plus pluralize and the including and whereas the exclusively diversity in include is inclusive and the celebrating while the disparities is inclusively and the result in the inequalities. And for examples, the northwest is the centralized and rich and the diverse it the economically and the disadvantage compared to other parts of India and positive whereas the negative and the connotations while the diversities and lightings highlightings and rich and the heritage and disparities reflected the economic backwards and the inequalities and policy implications addressing and the diversities may the required cultural and policies, while the disparities in needs and economic interventions like the special packages. For instance, affirmative policy celebrates and the regional diversities, while the spread special economic packages address the disparities and serious of the issues of regional disparities in India. North South divided the incomes gap between the northern and the southern state highlights serious reasons and disparities. For example, GDP per capita income of southern state is the significantly higher than the most of India's northern states and reflecting the north-south gap in 2023 and 24. Telangana per capita income stood at the 193.6% of the national average, whereas Bihar's per capita income and was the almost one third of the national's average. Industrial and the disparities, it is the natural resources wealth, and Chhattisgarh faces the industrial disparities due to the inadequate infrastructures and investment falling the behind and more the industrialized states like Haryana's and Punjab in terms of the development. Agrarian crisis regime with the agrarian distress and continues to the suffers, and while the others experiences economics and growth. For example, Vidarbha's regions in Maharashtra is plagued and by the high farmer societies and contrasting with the prosperities of Western Maharashtra. Regional unrest and disparities and often fuels regional unrest and the insurgencies due to the perceived neglect in the development effort. For example, the insurgencies in Nagaland and Manipur are the partly and attributed to the lack of the development in those the regions. Migration issues and the disparities and cues mask the migration from the under and the developed and reason to more and the prosperous and one the straining the urban infrastructures more the instances and due to the underdevelopment and lack of the job opportunities in Odisha, and many the workers and migrant to Gujarat and industrial hubs like the Surat and the Allahabad. Way ahead way ahead to address the regional and disparities in India, balance regional development and policies, formulating and policies that the target balance groups and access the regime can help the reduce disparities. Boosting infrastructures in leggings the regions and investment in infrastructures project like the road ports and the railways and can the improve connectivity and economic opportunities. For example, the project and like the Maharashtra Bharat Mata and focus on the developing infrastructures in underdeveloped region, encouraging and private investment in centralizing the private sectors to invest in backward regions and can the foster industrial growth and the job creation. For example, the Northeastern Development Financial Corporation NED FI encourage and private sector investment in the northern empowering locals. The government strengthens locals government through the decentralization can ensure that the development policies are tailored to regime's needs. For example, the Kerala's model of decentralization empower local bodies to address regime specific challenges. Focused skills development programs implementing and skills development programs tolerate to the need of the underdevelopment regions can the created job and improve the economy. For example, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana and PMKVY focused on the trainings industries for employabilities and in the leggings regions, and the regional disparities and remains other serious challenges in India's the development journey, and with the vast different in economic growth infrastructure and social development across the regions, and addressing thus the disparities and requires and holistic policies encourage the private investment and decentralization government by the fostering inclusively growth and ensuring the equitable and access to the resources, and India's can the bridge and the gap between it It's the developed and the underdeveloped and regimes, ensuring balance and the sustainable development for all. Despite comprehensively and policies for the equality and the socials and justice under privileged sections are not aid the getting the full benefits of every affirmative actions envisaged by the Constitution comment. Core demand of the question highlighted the comprehensively policies for the equalities and social justice, highlighted the reasons why the under privileged sections are not aid the getting the full benefits of the affirmative actions and envisaged by the constitutions, suggested a way ahead for the insurance and full benefits of the affirmative actions to the underprivileged section. Affirmation action in India rooted in the constitution aims to the uplift and underprivileged sections like the SC, ST and the OBCs and through the reservation in education, employment and policies despite and thus the efforts and many the underprivileged groups and are aid to fully benefits from thus the misers and persist social barriers, administrative and challenges, and the limited economics opportunities continues to the hinder qualities and social justice, creating other gap between policies and practices. Comprehensively policies and for the equality and social justice. Affirmative action through the reservations and the Indian constitution guarantees reservations for SC and ST and OBCs in education, employment and political representation to ensure the equalities and social justice. For example, reservations in the public sector, job and educational institution aims to uplift thus the marginalized communities for providing equal opportunity post-matric scholarships to reduce the financial barriers for students and for the SC/ST backward classes. The post and metric scholarships schemes provided the financial assistance for the higher education, improving access to the qualities education and stand up India schemes and offers the loan to SC/ST and the entrepreneurships to promote the economic empowerment and the entrepreneurships. And for example, more than 1.8 lakhs women and SC or ST entrepreneurs and have been the sanctions loan and exceeding 40,600 crores and Eklavya's models residential schools the arts initiatives provides and the quality residential schoolings to tribals student, enhancing educational infrastructures in the remote areas. For example, by 2022, over 2088 EMRS schools were the operation benefiting tribal students across India. SC/ST prevention of Atrocities Act. This act aimed to protect SC and ST from the social injustice and the caste-based violence, ensuring the legal supports and fast-track justice. For example, over 5,000 cases of caste-based atrocities and were the registered in 2022 and with the legal machines and ensuring the accountability and justice. The reason why the under and the privileged sections are not aid getting the full and benefits of affirmatives action envisages by the constitution, the administrative delay in ensuring essential documents like the caste certified and slow down the process of the assessing reservations and benefits for the marginalized community. For example, many SC and ST industrials in Bihar and the Uttar Pradesh face long and waiting times for caste and certified preventing timely access to the affirmative actions, lack of the awareness. Many underprivileged groups and especially in the remote areas and are the unaware of their the rights and the affirmative actions and schemes limiting their the benefits. For examples, in the northern India, many tribal communities remains the unaware of their the entitlement under the affirmative actions policies. Electoral missiles and political parties often the manipulates and resources policies for the vote bank policies rather than the addressing genius and disparities. For example, the caste-based reservations are often misused for electorals and gains during the state elections and with the little focus on socio-economical upliftment. Private sector resistance, the lack of the affirmative actions in the privileged sectors limits job the opportunity for SC/ST community. For example, many Indians private and companions do not have the diversities hirings policies leavings and SC and ST candidate under presently presented caste-based and discriminations and persistence caste-based discrimination in education institutions and discourages marginalized students leading to high the dropout rates. For example, Dalit students often face social exclusive and caste-based discriminations is higher than education affecting their the academic performance. Why had by aid for ensuring the full and the benefits of affirmative action to underprivileged section enhances the outreach programs expanding the awareness compositions through the initiatives like the gem and the trinities and jan dhan aadhar mobile can help the under and the privileges community understand and the access affirmative action schemes. For example, GM can the disseminated information to remote the areas ensuring SC and ST community are the aware of their the rights and benefits. Strict monitoring and the accountability is stabilizing risk district levels and the bodies to the monitors the implementations of affirmative actions policies can the ensures the proper excavations. For examples, either dedicated monitoring bodies and could track the implementation of reservations policies in public in employment and education. Improving education infrastructure. Improving education infrastructure, upgraded facilities in rurals and tribal schools, and improving teaching training can enhances the education outcomes for marginalized community. Diversity hearings in the private sector, introducing the affirmative section actions and the diversities hearings policies in, for example, in private sector can open job opportunity for SC/ST candidate. For example, Tata Group's affirmative action policy in hearing the promotes diversities and in inclusions settings an example for the cooperation world. Fast tracking legals cast and the strengthening legals and the mechanism and fast the tracking cases under the SC/ST privileges advocacies and act can the ensure justice of victims of the discriminations. Despite affirmative action and development programs and underprivileged group in India and still the struggles to access the benefits prioritizing awareness, education, economic empowerment, and the strict monitoring alongside and collaborations among the government, privileged sectors, and NGOs is essential for the inclusively growth. Question number 19. Question number 19. Globalization has increased and urban migrations by the skills and young unmarried women from the various classes, and how has this trend impacted and upon their the personal freedom and relationship with the families. Core demand of the question discuss how the globalization has increased and urban the migration by the skills and young and unmarried and women and from the various classes. Explain how this and the increase the globalization trend has the impacted personal and freedoms. Highlighted how this the increase and the globalization trend has the impacted regional relationships and with the family. Answer. Globalization has played a crucial role in increasing the urban migration among the skills young and the unmarried women from the diverse background in India seeking better economic opportunity, education and personal freedoms. Thus, the women are the breaking traditionals and the families normally and to the thrive in urban the centers like the Bengaluru and Mumbai. This shift offers and granted greater financial independence and exposure to global cultures and globalization has increased the urban migration by the skills young and unmarried women from the various classes economical opportunity in urban areas. Globalization has opened up the high paying jobs prospect in urban cities centers attracting women from the different and social economically backgrounds. And for example, cities like the Bengaluru and Hyderabad has becomes the tech and hubs, drawing the women into the industries like the IT and the software development. Access to education and school development the depends and for the higher education and specialized skill and has the lead to increase the migrations of women to urban the areas for the better careers opportunities. For instance, Delhi University and IITs and attract the Indians students from the across India and offering the women and access to high and quality education. Globalization works cultures. Urban areas and often other merit based and the cosmopolitarians works and cultures and which is the attract women and seeking the equal opportunities in the force workforces. For example, companies and like the DBS and banks and the Google Indias and promotes are the meritocrates and critics and the diverse workplace where the woman can thrive in the leaderships and roles. Leadership roles and the financial independence and the personal freedoms women who migrate to under the central gain financial autonomy. Impact of trade upon and personals and freedoms. Positive impact. Financial independence women gain financial autonomies and allowing them to the make independence and life the choices such as the careers directions and the personal investment. For the instance, working women enjoyed the increased and decisions making power and over there the earning border social exposures and migrations to the cities and provides women and with the broader and social networks and opportunities to interact and with the diverse groups of people. For instance, women in the fashion industries have the access to global network and creations community career opportunities. Urban migration allows women to the pursues and careers path and that may not be the owl in the smallest towns on the rural areas expanding there the professionals growth. And for the instances the medias and entertainment and industries in Mumbai offers the numerous opportunity for the women to extend excels and in the creating roles personal space and the freedoms of choice. And women in cities and often have the freedoms to live and the independently and choose their the lifestyles and make personal decisions and without the societal pressures. For intense working women enjoyed the freedoms to live in shared apartments and or on theirs the ovens. For negative impact and disturbed work life and balance and the first phases and urban the work cultures and can lead to the burnout and the challenges in maintaining other work life balance. For example, women in corporate sectors often face long workings and hours leading to stress and the decreased and personal time social isolations. And whilst the migration offers the independence, it is can the also causes social isolations and due to the lack of the families and supports and either disconnects and from the familiars and culturals and norms. For examples and women's the mappings women's moving from shells from small towns and to the cities and may feel isolated from their the communities. Economic exploitations and the globalization of industrial participations in the developing nations has led to the exploitations of the females and laborers and low the wages job. For example, in the sectors like the German garments and manufacturing, women face the limited personal freedom as they the endures and poor working conditions and the restricted labor rights in the pursuit of economic survivors. Impact on relationship with families. Positive impact and increase the respected and role in the decision making. Financial independence often the increase respected and gives the woman a the greater voice in family decisions. For the instance and daughters and who the support their the families and financially and from the urban jobs and often gain the more influences in the household and matters and strengthens and bond through the technology. And the technology helps and women the maintain and strong the families the tire tease and despites and the physicals and the distance. And for example, the platforms like the WhatsApp and Zooms allows the woman and to the stay and the connected and with the families and bake in their the hometowns and breaking the traditional genders roles and migration challenges and traditional acceptations and leading to the acceptance of women's careers and independence and within the families empowerment of family members. And women's success often inspired and younger siblings or other family members to pursue the education and careers. And for the examples and many the rural families and encourages the younger daughter to follow in the footsteps. Negative impact emotional distance and the migration may lead to the emotional distance and between the woman and their families as the frequency and the physical interactions and becomes the less positions conflict and over the independence and families and may the struggle with the independence there the daughters again leading to the conflict and over the lifestyle choice and such as the late workings and hours or living the arrangement. And for the instance and the conservative families may disapprove of young and the women's and leaving the alone in the cities delayed marriage and the families and tensions and increase the globalization encourages careers and prosperities and for youth and skills and women often the leadings to the delayed marriages. And this can the created tensions and with the traditional family exploitations and where the early marriage is valued and leading to the conflict between the personal ambitions and the families and pressures. Urban migrations among skills young and the unmarried women have the transformed and their the personal freedom and families dynamics and in the significant ways. And whilst they gain the financial independence and boldness horizontal and increase the decisions making powers and they also face the challenges and such as the works and life and balance emotional distance and the occasionals and conflict and with family expectations balancing and thus the factors requests and social sports and the including works and environments and strong family aspects of changing norms. Question number 20. Critically analyzes the propositions and that there is other high and collaboration between the India cultures, diversities and social the economic marginalized. Co-demand of the question. Examine the arguments that the support other strong correlations and between the India culture diversity and the socio-economically marginalized and discuss the argument and there the oppose and the notion of the strong and collaborations and between the India and the cultural diversities and socio-economically marginalized suggested in the way forward. India's culture diversity is reflected in its the multitude of language and religion and ethnic sites, and however this the diversity is often linked to social economic marginalized and as the certain cultural groups and face systematic and disadvantage in the accessing resources and opportunities. The collaborations between the cultural identities and economic inequalities remain other critical issues. The Sachar Community Report 2006 and highlighted the economic marginalized of India and Muslims community, showing the how cultures identified, interacted and with the socio-economically status. Argument supporting the collaboration, the correlations and between the culture diversities and socio-economical marginalized regions and imbalanced and minorities and certain the ethnic minorities face the disproportionals and socio-economic challenges, and due to their geographical and isolations and lacks of development, and socio-economically challenges due to their the geographical isolations and lack of development. For example, the Nagas and Mijos community in the northeast struggles and with the limited access to education and the healthcare, resulting in low the economic groups growth and the linguistic marginalized and linguistics and the majorities and face the in the exclusions and from the mainstreams and opportunities, and due to the dominated of the certain language in education and government. For examples, and Bodo the speaking community in Assam and have the struggles for the representations and access to highest the education and job markets, and due to the language barriers and religious minority and economically marginalized religious majorities often face discriminations leading to the socio-economically and disadvantage. For example, the Samachar community report and highlighting the economic and marginalized of the Muslims and with the lowers and access to government job and education tribal community and land the alienations. Many the tribal community face the displacement due to the development project and which is the aliened them from their the ancestors land and traditional livelihood. And for example, in Chhattisgarh and the Jharkhand and large scale mining and has led to the displacement of the tribal groups and pushing them into the poverty, educational and the disparities and culturally diverse and religions often face and the educational inequalities, limiting access to the qualities and education and the perpetuating and social economically marginalized. For example, tribal areas in Odisha and Madhya Pradesh and have the significantly lower the literacy rates and compared to the more and the developed religions and genders and the cultural norms and culturals and practices in the some religious and perspective genders inequalities and limiting women access to education and economic opportunities. For example, the rural Dalit women and the women from the religious and minorities face the multiple layers marginalized. That the cultural prosperity without marginalized some rural groups initiative despite being the majority and demonstration that the cultural diversities does not inherit and lead to the marginalized. For example, the Parsi communities had the prospered and economically. The Parsha community has the proposed and the educationals. Economically, despite being other religious and the culturals and the minorities and the religious development initiatives and targeted regional development has the imposed socio-economical condition for the many cultures and minorities. For example, the Kerala's and minorities and has the benefits and from the high literacy rate and low and poverty levels and due to the progressive policies and exclusively government empowerment of scheduled caste and the scheduled type affirmatives action and the reservations policies and has led to increase the representations and the opportunity for scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe in educations and civil services.